What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be on the GT350. Now this video, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to get into, but we'll go over a few things first. This is a little bit of like a gap filler video. If you watched my last track day, more charging issues. So as you can see, alternator's out. That was the big issue. So to try and remedy that, I ended up getting the plugs, or the the pigtails, and the battery current sensors. If you hadn't watched that video, what I ended up doing was removing the plug from the back of the alternator, and the alternator kind of self-regulates at 13.5-ish volts. So I ended up just running a session like that. You know, it worked for a session, but I would kind of like to fix it properly. So we're gonna get into a little bit of wiring, how to, crimp on new pigtails. The other thing I'm gonna touch on is a handful of just, I'll call them like quality of life issues. Like one, for example, this little hook right on the side of my seat here. So when I would get off track and undo my helmet blower, I would kind of have to jam it like in the cup holder or wedge it between here or something, and it kept like falling back. Kind of huge pain in the butt. So now when I take it off of my helmet, just stick it right there, ready to go for the next one. So that was just a super simple 3D print. So yeah, this is just going to be a whatever video. We'll see what we get into, and I think that's about it. Let's get rolling. All right, guys, so I figured first thing we'll do is the wire going to the alternator, because that's kind of buried down in the engine bay. Now, very first thing I did, I took out the one that I thought was it, but it is not. It's this guy. So before I put it on, I just want to make sure it plugs into my alternator. Okay, because that would have sucked to wire that one up and find out it doesn't plug into the alternator. Now they give you instructions, and they come with these little crimps and everything, so it's pretty easy. Just kind of strip your wire, give them a crimp. So I'll show you that right now. All right, so here's the plug that I cut off. You can see I cut it pretty darn close. It's pretty tight in there, and all the wire wrap and stuff, we only really have like 1.5 inches to play with. One thing I am going to do is lengthen it a little bit. So we'll go to about there. Gotta do them one at a time with this thing. Now, if you never played with wiring before, one of these little like automatic strippers is awesome. I'll put a link to, I don't know if I'll be able to find this one, but something very similar to this in the video description below. And it even has like a little length measurement on it. So 1/2 inch should be plenty. Now, one trick you can do, and they even mention it in the directions, is to kind of stagger your joints. So, one would be cut here, one's cut here, and this one would be cut longer. These are such small butt connectors that come with it. I'm just doing them all right at the same spot, again, kind of because we're very limited with how much we have left on this one. And then give a really good squeeze. Now, just to test it, I mean, I'm pulling that really hard, and it ain't going nowhere. All right, so all three on. We have the pull test, feels good. Do not forget to put your heat shrink on now. Guaranteed, people have done it. You end up making your connection and you don't put the heat shrink on. Then what do? You got to undo everything. So let's go get this crimped onto the car. All right, guys, it's really hard to see in here, but so there's my butt connectors. What we're gonna do now is slide the heat shrink up and over them, heat them up to shrink them down, and we'll be finished. To heat shrink them, I got this heat gun with like a shield on it, which will be nice because I'll be able to get in there, heat it up without really heating up anything else. Again, I think I mentioned it earlier, any of these weird little unique tools, I'll put links down below. I'm also going to put part numbers to all of the sensors and pigtails, just in case you get a GT350 and you're having some issues. Hopefully it saves you a little time. All right, so there we are, done. We know we got a good seal, because you can kind of see the bit of like the sealant that comes out when you heat these things up. It's coming out of both ends, so we're looking good. You can see, I think it was last year I had to do the one to this cam sensor here, you know, very exact same process. Put a little extra tape around this one though. So there you go, crimping on new pigtails, really not a lot to it. You can get crazy enough into soldering, and that's what they do recommend, I believe, on 16 gauge or thicker wires, 14 gauge or lower, which I think these are. You know, do it with the butt connectors. Oh, and very last thing to note, I triple checked to make sure I did the correct colors from the original harness to the new plug, because the new plug, the wires are just black. So make sure you don't get those mixed up either. All right, so now that our plug is done, we're ready to go back on with the alternator. Now this alternator with our pulley, I'll put a tag up here. I did a video of me making this pulley actually. Quick sidebar, I have had people ask about producing those pulleys. Issue is with the overrunning clutch, can't quite find one of them, but there's always a but. Slowing the pulley down about 25%, do you need that clutch anymore? But once I figure that out, I'll probably get a batch made, so stay tuned for those. Comment below if it's something you like really are interested in. But enough on that. Here's the one that came out with the stock size pulley. We're gonna go back to my pulley. Since this is a track dedicated car now, you know, the sustained RPMs, it should allow the alternator to last longer. The other thing is, now that I have I'm going back to try and think, three track days with this alternator and this belt. Like, this belt looks great, so it's like I got the alignment and everything like right on. It's not chewing up belt, so that's good. So yeah, I'm going to go back on with this, even though this is the one that I originally think the regulator was bad on. So I'll get him all back in, start the car up, kind of see what I got. I kind of only want to do one thing at a time. I don't think I'm going to get into these sensors yet, because if you look at these, if I need to do these sensors or pigtails, I could just do these like in between sessions probably, you know. It seems more often than not with GT350s, it's that plug down with the alternator that people have had issues with. So we'll see if that, oh, and here's, I showed this in the other video, I wrapped the first few inches of that header because the back of the alternator is like right, you know, you got about an inch between the alternator and the header. Oh, and there's more. It might be hard to see, but the back of the fan shroud, let's grab a light. So on the back of the fan shroud, you can see that one. So I did that one right there, right there. I think I did one down on the bottom, can't quite see. I ended up cutting holes in the fan shroud to let more air kind of just naturally pass through the radiator right in front of the alternator. Again, a little more air just flowing through. And again, because it's a track car, more air through the radiator on track at speed is almost always better. Ideally, we know this from testing in the wind tunnel, no fan shroud gives you like the best flow through the radiator. You know, the race car hasn't had a fan shroud for over 10, or a fan shroud. It hasn't had a fan for over 10 years now. You know, you just got to remember when you come off track, keep an eye on your temperatures. This one isn't quite at that point, so a few extra like holes to just let air come through, I think should be all right. Oh, and one last thing I forgot, again, with the fan shroud, because I've been in and out with alternators so much, might be a little hard to see, but you can see this blade, or I don't know, I'll call it a rib or whatever, this rib, and that rib, I shaved down about halfway. So there's a full-size one. So I shaved those down because getting the alternator, you can sneak it in and out of here, but it's tight, and I would have to kind of wiggle it around these ribs right here. So again, shaving those down. I got to do another alternator in the future, almost like future-proofing the car a touch, making it easier to get alternators in and out. Alright guys, I apologize if it's loud, but as you can see, 14.6, even giving it some revs, we're steady. Now, I don't want to get my hopes up because it kind of did this before in there swapping alternators. But swapping alternators, I would have to undo that plug, and that would maybe like re-wiggle something to connect on that 3-plug thing. So that might be it, but still the issue was it was like spiking voltage. So again, is it maybe one of those current sensors telling the car like, hey, I'm not getting enough current, send more, and it, you know, makes the alternator send way more than necessary. So I'm going to take all those other sensors and pigtails to the track with me, like I mentioned earlier. But we're narrowing it down. We should be past this charging system, charging issues pretty soon, hopefully. Also, while we're in the car, a couple other quality of life things, just in case you're interested. I tucked in the wire going to the AIM up under the dash, so that way it just goes right to the AIM Solo. I 3D scanned this part of the dash and 3D printed myself this little bracket right here. Now these screws go into the 3D print, but not through. It's just two-face taped onto this. So it makes it a real nice, you know, way to mount a Solo right here. And I can still see, you know, my other gauges. The vent comes down, have an AC. As I get older, I would love to just yank all the AC stuff, lose the weight and everything. But, you know, while waiting in grid where you come off track, turn the AC on, it's pretty nice. Let's see. I think I showed you the little hose holder right here. So when I get off, you know, hose is always right there. Other thing is another 3D print. This little holder right here for the switch that's going to my helmet blower. Now it's off right now because I tied it directly to the roll cage, but the slight vibrations of the fan on the roll cage was making like it was making a racket through the entire car. So I got to put some like rubber something isolators underneath of it or something like that. But the switch for it, I wired this up like 5 minutes before I loaded up the car before last track day, and the switch was just hanging out like in here. But when I'm bolted in, it's a pain in the butt to get. So again, just going to two-face tape it somewhere to the side of the center console right here. Much easier to get to. So that'll be, so again, just one of those little nice things. The one last thing I did, let's hop out real quick. I 3D printed myself these little bumpers right here that hit the factory rubber bumpers and adjusted these so they're nice and firm on here. That allowed me to remove that whole panel. That whole panel was like 2.2 pounds or something. Those things are like an ounce each. So, you know, saved another 2 pounds, nothing crazy, but 2 pounds here, 2 pounds there. Next thing you know, car is starting to lose some decent amount of weight. All right, so here the helmet blower is redone. You know, switch just stuck on, a little bit of loom to dress it up. Not worried from about here back. So much nicer, cleaner setup. Much easier to hit the switch as well. Also, I'm working on a kit to put the factory overflow reservoir back in the battery cavity. I'll put a picture across the screen because we're out right now. So like here's one of the brackets. So I'm all modeled up, 3D printed like mock-ups to make sure it all fits and works and everything. But that should be a little bit of a kind of like a triple win. You move some weight from in front of the axle to behind it. We tested this in the wind tunnel, and once that is moved out of the way, you actually do get a little more flow through the radiator up and out the louvers, and it just will clean up the engine bay. It will fit underneath of that plastic as well, so it'll look nice and clean. That's something I'm working on. So I really think that's about it for this one. You know, nothing too crazy. The next track day will be Shelby Mustang Club at VIR. That should be fun because it's just 2 days of DEs. And it'll be about, I don't know, 90% Mustangs. So it'll be fun to get out there. You know, fingers crossed we finally can get past these charging issues, because we finally got past the misfire issue a couple track days ago as well. So, yeah, I think that's about it. As always, guys, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.